our first speaker, Gavin Cayenne with R3.
Thank you. I'm gonna use that stool. Good morning. I asked Jim to use the stool. I'm a pacer. So sitting down sometimes helps me calm my nerves. Or at least I hope that it does this morning. As Jim said, I'm the vice president for a company called R3, which stands for Rapid Risk Reduction. June 2016, I was standing in the bookstore of my alma mater, FAU. I was standing there looking at overpriced hoodies, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, when a 5'3" woman, mother of three by the name of Ms. Rachel, tapped me on the shoulder and asked me if I would get the last XXL hoodie for her husband off of the rack. She was standing there with two little children with their arms full as well, and I was asking her if she planned on buying the whole store. She said if she could afford it, she was going to buy it, because that was the most memorable day of her life. Her oldest daughter, she was moving into college, and she was setting out on the journey to become the family's first college attendee and first generation college graduate. Over the years, Miss Rachel's home would be a safe haven for many of us, a place for us to stay during the holidays when we couldn't make it home to see our families. But my personal favorite, when my $500 student credit card was maxed out, it was a place for free food and snacks. I got a chance to get really close with Miss Rachel and her family, and they were like a second family to me throughout college. Years later, about 2 semesters before graduating, I saw her and her husband again, only this time she was not asking me to grab a XXL hoodie off the rack. She was asking me to grab her a box of tissues as she was down at the city morgue identifying her daughter's body. 2 semesters before her daughter was set to graduate, she was leaving the student library, went to her friend's house off campus for an all-night study session where she was finalizing one of her capstone research projects and was preparing for one of the biggest presentations of her college career up to that point. She was given an Adderall to be able to stay up all night so that way they could power through it. 12 minutes later, she was dead. This isn't the story of just Miss Rachel. This is the story of nearly 1 million families since 1999. The 2 biggest preventable causes of death that we see in the United States today are drug overdoses and heat strokes. In 1999, Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family manipulated graphs and data to convince the FDA that OxyContin was the world's very first non-addictive painkiller, and it only took less than a year to find out that that was not true. 2013, we see the rise of fentanyl, 1,400 overdoses in 2013. 2023, a record high, just shy of 80,000 in 1 year. In comparison, up to the end of the summer, there was 444,000 fires started in the United States. So in today's landscape, you're more prone to seeing somebody have an overdose out in public than you are a fire starting in your neighborhood or your city. Most of these deaths are avoidable if people know what to do in the first 60 seconds. Drug overdoses, the landscape has changed. It's no longer opioids that need to be prescribed. It's products that your child, your coworker, the cashier at your local pharmacy or grocery store can go pick up at the gas station for $15. Heat strokes, same thing. Heat strokes are claiming on an average 1,300 lives every single year. And in the last 2 years, we've lost nearly 30 student athletes in high school due to a heat stroke. We all have this innate ability and this innate nature that we want to help a life when we see one in need, but we don't necessarily know what to do. Most people wonder, are they, depending on the situations themselves, going to be safe? What happens if I try to render aid and something goes wrong? Or what happens if I know what to do, but I simply just don't have the tools and resources together near me in a timely manner? And so up until now, our communities have always been dependent on fire and EMS in the healthcare system. And our mission here at Rapid Risk Reduction is to take communities that are dependent on first responders such as you all and turn you all into communities of first responder to eliminate and reduce the number of avoidable deaths at scale. The first problem that we tackled over 3 years ago was the opioid and the overdose epidemic with the invention of something called the One Box after in the state of West Virginia. They had 33 fatal overdoses in a 4-hour span. Many in rural communities where average EMS response time was in between 20 and 22 minutes. Your national average of EMS response time is somewhere in between 7 and 12 minutes, but when it comes to a loss of consciousness, brain damage begins in 4 minutes after loss of oxygen, and severe brain damage starts within 10 minutes. So what we're seeing is in a lot of medical emergencies, somebody is losing consciousness and we're asking them to hold on while help is on the way. But what happens in those precious moments, right, when help is on the way? So we designed something called the One Box. It's very simple and easy to use. We call it the AED for overdoses. You open it up as you see in the video. It has everything that you need to reverse the overdose, as well as a 60-second video to play in English or Spanish to take something that is very life-threatening, a real high-pressure situation, and empower you to be a first responder and walk you through step by step. By a show of hands in here, is anybody CPR certified? There you go. Have you ever administered CPR? Anybody? You have? Yes. There you go. Okay. This is the most hands that I've gotten so far. How comfortable, by a show of hands, would you be if somebody needed CPR right now that you could administer aid? I got 1, 2, 3. Okay. Listen, well, I hope that if that ever happens, I hope that I am in the presence of you all. Most people, right, who I know that are CPR certified, right, it was something, a certification they got, but they forgot what to do. Or we know that even the most trained professionals, in some instances, can simply freeze. So all we wanted to do was simply be able to take the tools and resources that your local first responders are using and be able to be the first responder while they're on the way. After 3 years, 30,000 of them deployed nationwide, over 450 lives saved, and over $150,000 saved in medical costs. The communities and schools that we were working with asked us if we would tackle another problem in response to the rising temperatures that they were seeing, especially out on the West Coast in Arizona and Nevada. So by request, we came up with a product called the Heat Box, which essentially is the same thing, the AED for heat strokes. Most people, I used to be a golf professional when I was on the golf course. Most people having heat exhaustion, they tell you just sit in the cart, grab some water, but there's no actual real-time tools to implement it. There's no set sort of standard operating procedure on what to do if your body starts to hit 105 degrees, right? There's gonna be times where sitting down in the shade and grabbing water simply isn't enough. You actually need the supplies to lower your body's temperature and regulate it as well. So what we did was the level 1 trauma protocols. We worked with doctors and clinicians nationwide to come up to the most succinct system in 60 seconds that you can to render aid for heat strokes. This box has not only saved over 450 lives, it has helped us capture a lot of the data that we're seeing nationwide. We know as entrepreneurs that data is currency, no matter if it's you're trying to run a marketing campaign or you're trying to secure grants or funding to launch your next idea. This box has been instrumental with the help of some unique systems built in it to actually track data that is not required to be reported, yet is required by the organizations that we work with to secure fiscal funding. In 2021, the gentleman that's there in that video is now our head of research and development. His name is Jeff Hill. He runs one of the most successful nonprofit drug prevention coalitions in North Carolina. 2021, we implemented 1,001 boxes into his city, and over the next 3 years, we tracked the data to see if it was actually being effective, if lives were actually being saved, if the citizens in the community were actually comfortable being first responders. The very first year that we implemented it, their overdose fatality rate went down by almost 30%. 2 years following that, we are at 61.5%, and their goal over the next year is to double that. They've had 21 community overdose reversals by the box itself, but not only that, the most impressive thing that we saw was the reliance on the emergency department went down by nearly 50%. In Wilson County, North Carolina, the fire and EMS will tell you that for the most part, by the time that they have come on scene, the first dose of Narcan has already been administered and a life has already been saved. What it's doing for them is it's saving them medical costs, but what it's also doing is if the medicine is administered and nobody responds, it's not a drug overdose. So it's fast-tracking their medical protocols to see what is the next life-saving measures that we need to take. We simply see this as the AED for overdoses. In every single building across the United States, you'll see a fire extinguisher and an AED, and you're probably never or very unlikely in your life to ever see them used. But in today's landscape, it is pretty common that you might see somebody having an overdose. So we believe that if there's a fire extinguisher and an AED in every single building, in today's landscape, something like a heat box or a one box or some sort of standard operating procedure and tool and resource for these medical emergencies need to be present. So we've worked a lot with our healthcare system. Our fire and EMS has been a big proponent of helping us get these and implement these in the communities. Schools have begun to take more proactive measures as they are seeing the lives of their students taken every single week, and they're wanting to empower their parents, their staff, their coaches on what to do. So where are we today? Two of our biggest university reporters were Duke and Clemson University. Duke University came to us 2 years ago after a college student from their rival school in North Carolina came to visit for homecoming weekend, received a bad batch of cocaine by one of her friends, and was dead in 12 minutes. 2 weeks ago, Providence, Rhode Island, 12 college students on the same campus within the same 30-minute span, 12 overdoses. Thankfully, they had something such as the one box present on campus, and so all 12 lives were saved. We've been fortunate to partner with over 250 colleges and universities, and that number keeps rising. And now we've set our sights on cities and states. But the biggest thing when it comes to this is we understand that systems need to be sustainable and supportive as well. So our goal and what we say is that simply by having these tools and resources inside the communities, that in 60 seconds you can save a life one box at a time. So far, we're approaching over 450 lives saved, and that's just the ones that have been reported to us. But these resources have been instrumental in addressing scenarios that typically would have been left for first responders, but now have empowered citizens, have empowered children, students, parents, coaching staff to now take measures into their own hands. Thank you.
All right. All right, good job.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Love the box. I'm a former educator, forensic specialist now. You need to hit every fraternity and sorority in this country, and you know who will pay for them is the parents.
Yes.
I don't think people understand. You can have the brightest kid on the planet. They walk into, and I'm a former grade. You walk in, and people, they full of pills, and they just start popping this stuff.
Yep.
And then what happens is when they do have an overdose, nobody wants to be part of it, so they cover it up, and that's what happens. We need these in every fraternity, every sorority. We need these in high school. We need these in places where people wouldn't think that you needed them. And the other one is, I want you to get on YouTube and pre-teach people, because that 1 minute of watch, like when people are super stressed, they maybe can't follow the instructions. So if you get out there and pre-teach people, then they'll know what that box is and boom, they can do it right away.
Yes, and to that point, so a lot of our locations where we have these set up, there's security cameras that are set up there, and because the boxes are they're very pleasing and aesthetically pleasing to the eye to where you wouldn't necessarily notice they were there. You'll see people at the end of the night that they're just opening the box and they're just playing with it, right? And all it takes is 60 seconds. So to your point of being able to teach them, that's why this has been instrumental for us, because the organizations that we work with where it's their job to go city by city, right? Chamber of Commerce, school districts, fire and EMS, whatever it is, they're trying to train these groups of crowds one by one, but there's only so many instructors, there's only so many first responders. So what this has done is been able to take that training on the go and be able to pre-teach people. So even we have it in a gym in West Virginia, and people will just open it up just because they want to see what it is, and they end up watching the 60-second video. Now they're trained on how to save a life. But also to your point, so colleges and universities have been a big proponent. The University of Georgia requires all of their fraternities and sororities, if they're going to have a party, they have to check out one boxes from us. So it's been something that's been progressive. We've gotten some pushback from schools and public and private businesses because sometimes some people see these as fail-safes or inhibiting the use of drugs because people know they have a safe haven. But what I like to tell people is, as long as you've owned a business, you carry a fire extinguisher, it doesn't increase the likelihood or saying to somebody, hey, I'm an arsonist, I want to go set it on fire, just because I know that there's a fire extinguisher to be used. So we see it as more just like insurance. It's there in case you need it. You hope you never have to have it, But when it comes to the public and private businesses and the school sector, for us, we don't necessarily care what their rhyme or reason is for wanting to implement these. We do understand, though, but the easiest string to pull with them is they don't want to end up in a situation like Duke University, where they're undergoing a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because they don't have the proper things in place.
That's a great idea. Good question.
So the other question I have is, how much does one of these cost? And I'm sure you probably don't pay and pay for it, but there are national grants that are available for schools to leverage. So I think you should approach that angle too, if you haven't looked into that.
Yep.
Where schools and universities could have this, because I think this is growing now in high schools as well, not just colleges and universities. It's gotten to a high school point as well.
Yes, so the sustainability piece is one of the very first things that we thought. So most life-saving resource for medications that you'll see out there, you can go get Narcan from Publix for $40. But what if somebody doesn't have the $40 to pay for that medication? Right, so the boxes themselves are $150, but they have a 7-year life cycle on them. So over the course of that 7 years, it comes out to the sustainability component of it of being $21 a year. When it comes to getting them funded, we have the benefit of no cost to any of the organizations that we work with. We have a full-time grant writing staff who takes advantage of things that are like opioid abatement funds, SAMHSA, and SOAR grants to get these fully funded. That's one of the things we're working with DeSoto County schools right now to get these fully funded. So right now, when it comes to the overdose box, there is a lot of grants and public funding for them over the next 15 years. Something like the heat box is a little bit more niche because you're more so looking like legacy foundations that are just looking at public health and safety grants, but even for just personal use of having it in your house or your car, right? It's $150 and that you could just go and spend and it's gonna last you, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to grab coffee with you after this because there are some synergies in what I'm doing and what you guys are doing, because with the solution that we're working on, we can predict where the next opioid pandemic is gonna happen. So I think that's where we can collaborate and, help, get these kids out into those areas.
Sure.
Good idea. I'll be down there. You have a question?
Sure. Hi, my name is Maggie. I believe I met you briefly before, but first and foremost, thank you for what you're doing. It's really important. And I'm actually from West Virginia.
Are
I
you?
went to Marshall for a little bit.
Marshall's a big user, is one of
Yeah,
our biggest
and
supporters of these.
So they actually made a Netflix documentary called Heroin because
Jan Rader's in the video.
yes,
And she does our
because
teaching and instructing.
in West Virginia, a heroin and drug overdose is probably #1 in the country, at least at one point whenever I was living there. So my thing to you would be, because my background is social work, I would make sure that your behavioral health agencies, your social workers have access to these, and even partnering with some of the nonprofits that provide free Narcan, because I know several of them, so we should definitely connect as well, and I can give you some of those resources. But that way, so for some of those people who maybe don't have that $150 or whatever, you would be able to rely on kind of a third party to make sure that everybody has access to it as well. And whenever I did have to give CPR, it was actually at a hotel. So, what I was shocked afterwards is that hotels don't have Narcan. So, while you're at schools and all of those things as well, I would definitely go to the hotels, motels, because that also is where a lot of drug overdose happens.
Yeah, so it's cool to meet a fellow person from West Virginia. So that has been one of the nonprofits and the coalitions and the behavioral health agencies have been, up to this point, the biggest help to us. So for us, we're all about a continuum model of care. So for us, it's like a multi-step approach that it's not just about keeping them alive, because for the people that we work with who are in the behavioral health space, it's about getting people on the road to recovery, right? But we say they can only get there if they're alive long enough. So the goal of this is just to simply keep somebody alive. I know a woman who has been revived of 17 overdoses in her life. Unfortunately, she is not going to make the decision, or she has not yet, to enter recovery, but I also know Mr. Jeff Hill, who's on our head of research and development, is in recovery himself for most of his life now. So he was one of those situations where the tools and the resources were available to those that were around him to get him into a good community, to get him into a good support system that would help sustain him. And we have been working with a lot of the people that do distribute the naloxone because it is free for them. So for us, we see these also as just like many vending machines and many, little kiosks around the city that we do get some pushback where people say, Duke University, oh, well, we have it at the desk downstairs, but it's locked up in the director's office, so it's not accessible. So something like Narcan, we know that it works, the data shows that it works, but it only works not only if it's present, but if the people who are in proximity to it know how to use it. But the behavioral health specialists have been very big, and it's been very heartwarming to see the work that they've been doing, because most people don't know about the work that goes on in the coalition world. So,
Well, very familiar with, with the drug box because Rotary is really into this. Rotary pays for it, so if you're a Rotarian, you can get training for that, and you also get a supply. One thing you have to be aware of this, too, is that this will help people who never hurt anybody. In other words, if you may mistakenly give it to somebody, it's not going to hurt them. But if somebody's out and it's because of that, it'll help them. Totally unfamiliar with the heat box. The other thing you need to be aware of is that they've passed the laws, so the Good Samaritan law applies, so that if you do give it to somebody, it's by a mistake, nothing can happen to you.
Yep.
Okay. Unaware with the heat box, what's in it?
yeah, so the heat box, and this has been a big proponent with youth sports, but also in the construction industry. So the construction industry right now in the United States is a leading industry with fatal overdoses in the workplace. So the heat box is used to help them also with their OSHA compliance. So OSHA over the last year and going into April of 2026 has really cracked down on their heat prevention illness plans to make sure that the proper operating procedures are in place. So when you open this up, same thing with the one box, is when you open them up, you're going to have everything that you need in it. So the one box comes with the Narcan, but also comes with PPE equipment. So gloves, a CPR mask, and face wipes. Most people don't know that naloxone itself is not harmful. And the only experience that they have with fentanyl is like CSI, where you open up the drawer and it makes you pass out just from the fumes, which is not true. So we know that people want to save a life, so we want to ensure that they're safe. With the heat box itself, what it's going to come with is it comes with rapid ice immersion tools. So it comes with on-set ice packs that you can place under the armpits to regulate the body temperature. Most people are familiar with heating blankets, or like the foil blankets that if you're having hypothermia, you're trying to warm your body up, that you're going to place it over you to regulate your body temperature. It works the same thing if you're trying to cool the body down. So once you start to cool the body down, you place the blanket over you. It's going to keep that body temperature internal to regulate it. Inside the hydration packets, it's going to come with salt and electrolyte tablets, as well as electrolyte drink mix-ins. And in the first aid kit, you're going to have waterproof tape and disposable thermometers. So the heat box is used a little bit more in the workplace side for training and prevention side of things, of how do we actually identify what's going on, and then what do we actually do when these ensue. So, and then when you pull them down, let me turn this down. For the heat box itself, there's 6 different situations, from heat exhaustion, heat cramps, but also down at the bottom on what to do if an incident does ensue. How do you actually go about reporting it and what happens? So whatever it is, the situation, you simply click on the number.
Heat cramp. Understanding heat cramp. Heat cramps are painful.
And then if you double click it or press it twice, it plays in Spanish. So one of the things when it comes to life-saving measures that we understand with the United States having a very big Latino population, that we didn't want language to be a barrier for it. So all of the products within R3 are bilingual, and I think as the only place right now that has more than 2 or 3 languages, weirdly enough, is Minnesota. They have about 12 different languages because they have a very big melting pot up there. So so the bilingual aspect, especially here in Florida and then places in like New Mexico and California, have been a big help.
Hi, Rupert Magnut from Orlandopreneur. So I realize the only difference between, are you a for-profit or non-profit? The only reason I ask is because while both businesses, your marketing is going to be a little different because your target markets are going to be, more in tune to what you're trying to do. So which one is it?
Yes. So we are a for-profit company.
So you said it was $120. You sold
$150.
$150?
Yes, sir.
for both or each or?
So each box is $150.
Okay, and how much does it cost you for you to make them?
Right now we're in the process of getting them remade stateside to save on the tariffs. Right now we make about $16 per box.
$16. Yeah, you definitely need to get that way up.
Yes. So
Way
we've
up.
been working with the National Entrepreneur Center, Roger Cologne. I met him at a networking event, so he has been helping us work with the Manufacturing Association of Florida to help get these brought back over here to
Okay.
reduce.
So what brought you to Orlando?
So I moved here in June. I moved here with some brothers and sisters of Christ of mine to come here and plant a ministry to spread the gospel to people.
So you're in luck because our congressman or our congresswoman and our mayor of Orange County, they're both former police chiefs for the city of Orlando, and they are keenly aware of what's going on in Orange County and the city of Orlando with regards to overdoses and heat stroke deaths. And, you know, Denny here is with the Rotary, and I strongly suggest you go talk to them and present there because they're tied into everything. So I would strongly suggest that you do that. That's basically all I have to say, and congratulations on what you're doing.
Thank you. And to your point, so one of the as I'm sure you're familiar, people who are in the behavioral health and coalition world are very protective over their people. Everybody in our organization, except for me, comes from West Virginia, where the opioid crisis hits home for them. Everybody in the organization, except for me, also comes from the nonprofit and coalition world. I just happened to come across them 3 years ago when I was working for another company and aligned with a personal experience I had. But that's a question that we get a lot. Is it for-profit or nonprofit? So it is for-profit.
Just answer, I'm a business.
Something that distinguishes us a little bit different is all of the money that is made goes back into the resources to be able to get these funded at no cost for the organization. So we have a full-time grant writing staff that will find all of the funding necessary for the organizations and the nonprofits. And then what we do with a lot of the organizations is we'll take a number of the proceeds from one of our national partners called CADCA, and a portion of the proceeds from every sale that's made from the box goes back to that organization, so that way they can put it back into the nonprofit. So it's been a question we get a lot, but the way that we go about navigating that relationship has been very good, and even the nonprofits are very trusting with us and what we're doing.
Who are your biggest competitors and what are your differentiators?
So for this specifically, there is no competitor. The reason being is that there has not ever been a technology box on the medical side for overdoses and heat strokes that has all the supplies plus video training inside of it. The competitors that would go with the overdose box would be something like Nalox box or Barney boxes, which are like little AED cabinets that you just paste up on a wall that has the naloxone inside of it. What we made for this was we have a separate device called the co-location, which is just the video component, and we actually made it to be a complementary piece to them. So as of right now, there is nobody that has the full box with the supplies and the video inside of it. So we say there's no competition on that side, and we're also not a drug distribution company, so we don't compete with anybody who distributes naloxone. Our product was simply made as an asset to them to be a complementary piece to the work that they're already doing. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, so congratulations. I think this is wonderful. I was actually talking to my mom about this recently because I've got, the younger generation. I'm an aunt, to lots of nephews. And, there are a lot of things that we question nowadays and we don't agree with, right? And our biggest fear is what if, and we don't want to just think what if, we want to be able to be proactive. So I congratulate you on this effort. Also, the young lady who was here earlier who mentioned hotels, she's absolutely correct. So I met Jackie Siegel last year through her pageant.
Yep.
And her daughter Victoria.
Yes.
unfortunately is a victim of overdose. And so I would definitely encourage you to get with her. She's gone to Congress. She and Dan Newland have stood before, you know, representatives of the House, and they are definitely advocating for Narcan to be everywhere. So I would assume that she's wanting the same thing to be placed on her properties, her and her husband's properties. Yeah, push forward, and if you need me to make the introduction, I can do that as well too. So
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yes, we came across Ms. Siegel 2 years ago at one of the national conferences, and then it's been a little bit difficult to getting back in contact with her. But one of our partner organizations here in Orlando, Project Naloxone, we just had a meeting with them last week. Ms. Siegel is a very big partner of theirs in what she's doing. But something to your point is our goal by the end of 2027 is to get some sort of resource like this to be mandated at the federal level. So we've started at the state and city level in Wilson County, North Carolina, where we were able to get their school district to rewrite their policy and legislation to where in Wilson County, the one box is mandatory in every single school and school bus. We're working right now in 3 other states, in Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia, with the Attorney General's office to do the same thing. I believe it's House Bill 56 is about to be passed in Ohio, and they are going to be adding, so when it comes to legislation, they can't specify this device, right, or the one box, but they can put measures in place to make sure that there has to be some sort of video component. So, but that's our goal by the end of 2027 is to get these some sort of mandation for it at the federal level. So, and I believe Ms. Siegel is going to be a very big helper for that.
Okay, last question.
Hi. My question is a little general. About 6 years ago, my son was having a very, very high fever. So my question is, this heat box also works for very high fever that even taking medicine, it doesn't go down until you actually go to a doctor and see it? Mm-hmm. Does that work for that too?
So it works in tandem with that. So what the heat box was designed to do first is when it comes to the youth sports and in the schools, we'll use this as a training piece to actually help them identify what is happening. So out in California last year, you had a high school football player who started, because most people don't know the difference between like somebody who's just having heat exhaustion versus somebody who's actually having a heat stroke. And so they treat it the same way. So last year in California, you had a high school football player who started feeling lightheaded during practice, but said that he wanted to continue, right? Moments later, less than an hour later, he was on the way to the hospital. He was suffering a heat stroke. So what the heat box does is through the training piece of it is just to help you identify what is happening and then be able to render aid while fire and EMS is on the way. So it's just meant to be as that fail safe for that 7 to 12 minutes for them to arrive so then they can begin fast tracking other medical protocols. So, but we are very careful to say with certain things like that this is not like a guarantee that this one sole product or these one set of, resources is going to be the sole reason for reversing something like a heat stroke. We just can say that it is something that can be in proximity to help begin that cooling process that your son was experiencing. You can at least start the process now, and then you can relay everything to fire and EMS, so then that way they can begin to start doing things when they get there.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for that. So one thought I have too, being a golfer, talk to the golf cart companies and manufacturers. That would be a great add-on.
We're going to be at the PGA show here in next month.
There you go.
That's the hope for it.
Perfect. Fantastic. Well, good job. So what can we, as the Orlando community of 1 million cups, do to help you advance this?
Yeah. Our biggest thing, so there's 3 QR codes up there. The first 2 are going to be, we always ask people who own businesses to join our network of safe businesses to consider getting a one box for their personal use, whether it's in their house, whether it's in their place of business, and then begin to train their staff and employees on what to do and advertise that your business has this resource for people. The third QR code down there is going to take you to a page for Brevard Prevention Coalition. We've been doing a lot of work with them here in the Central Florida area, and our goal for them specifically is to get 10,000 one boxes donated by the end of 2026 to be able to spread out throughout Orange County, Osceola, and Seminole and Brevard County here in Central Florida. We've had some work so far working with another coalition that has begun, I believe it's now 114 businesses here in the Orlando area. One boxes were donated to them and placed in the building. So if you feel led to, that page down there will connect you with Brevard Prevention Coalition, where you can help them get these boxes donated to them so they can implement them into the community. Other than that, the biggest thing for us has been that this has not been something where people like see the product or they see the resource and they're like, oh, we don't need that, I have to think about it, things like that. It's been very easy and very receptive for it. So for us, 30,000 of them have been placed nationwide now over the last 3 years, and that's been without zero marketing. That's just been word of mouth and hand-to-hand handshake introductions. So for us, the biggest component when it comes to getting these mandated or just getting citywide rollouts like we just started with the city of Baltimore and Mayor Scott is just simply introductions to people. So the hotel and hospitality industry has been something that people have been telling us now for the last 6 or 7 months. And for us, though, it's just about getting in front of those people and then getting a chance to actually sit down with them. We do understand the pushback that some of them have, but for the most part, we've only had one person in the last 3 years who has really come out and been against what we're doing. It was at a conference this year in Maine. A gentleman came up, gave us a lot of flack for what we were doing because he sees it as inhibiting people to use drugs because they know that, you know, they're going to be revived. And a gentleman that we brought onto the team from that conference gave up and gave a presentation and gave his life story about how I believe he is 26 years old, and for most of his life he was addicted to heroin at a very young age. And that same gentleman came back to us in tears and apologized for what he had said, and he has now been a big proponent for himself and his community of buying one boxes himself and going to place them into the communities around him. So this has never been something where people see it and they're like, oh, we don't need that. It's most people, they see it and then the cost, they're like $150. It's something that just kind of blows past them. And then when we talk about the big organizations for sustainability purposes over a long period of time, it's been very easy.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
All right. For hotel stuff, you need to talk to my friend Bernd right over there. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Seriously. All right, that was pretty interesting, wasn't it? Pretty cool stuff. These are some of our sponsors here that help make 1 million cups possible here. And Kelly here runs the incubator, so if you're looking for office space or things like that as a startup, she's the person you need to talk to about that. We're here every Wednesday, and the unique thing about 1 million cups is in each time zone at 9 o'clock all across the country, there's a 1 million cups going on somewhere. There's 132 chapters now across the U.S. So if you're traveling, look it up and see if they're there. It's kind of neat to see the like-minded individuals around. Also, like, follow, and share on social media. If you take any pictures of the event, it's great to post it, let people know that we're here. There's so many people who come in and say, I never knew something like this existed. And that's the beauty of what 1 million cups does, to be able to make a difference in some businesses and that. Also, Jane, our librarian, she's doing a special entrepreneur toolbox. This is the schedule. Starting, it's 4 weeks, 4 different 1 week segments. For an hour, it'll be online. Very informative. Will help educate you on some of the resources that the library has. If you're not a member of the library, it costs you nothing. And access the library, because the resources there, you're talking thousands, tens of thousands or more worth of resources for free. If you need to do research, and that would be a good thing for you guys, if you need to do research and you're looking for companies or types of businesses or whatever you want to do, go talk with Jane or one of the other research librarians, and they will point you in the right direction, show you what tools they have, and they can really help you with that stuff. Also, next week, we will not be here, okay? So no meeting next week. So if you come, you're going to have to, like, probably camp out at the 7-Eleven and have coffee and donuts there, okay? So we're not here. The following week, we will be back on the 31st, and one of our, Miss Lynn back here, is going to be one of our speakers. She has created one of the coolest apps, business card type apps I have ever seen, and you don't want to miss that. And then the 7th we'll be back, and we're still looking for a couple speakers on the 7th.
I'm still to register. I'm going to register for the 7th, so one of those spots.
Okay, so good. So go online and let's get you all set up. Okay, and then as I mentioned, the 24th we're not here. So go connect with somebody, make a new friend, and get to learn more about their business, okay? Go to some of the local coffee shops. You don't need to go to Starbucks. They got enough out there already. But there's some great other little local coffee shops around. Why here? You want to attend, apply, prepare your presentation, and present. So the way the process works, go to 1 Million Cups, number 1millioncups.com/Orlando. You can sign up to present, to be able to share your product and do like what Gavin just did. And then we'll be able to help and point you in a direction, give you ideas. It doesn't matter if you're making money or if you're just an idea on the table right now. And where do you want to go and what do you want to do with this, okay? And why present? Marketing and brand awareness equals exposure. Did that create some exposure for Gavin, what we saw today? That's the whole purpose of this. Think of what that's going to do once that gets out on YouTube and starts getting some promotion that way. Practice and feedback, it helps you grow, so it gives you an opportunity to present and share, create strategic partnerships, hiring and retaining talent, and as I mentioned, the get to know you. So get to know somebody, have a new friend. This is our organizing committee. If you're part of the organizing committee, raise your hand. If you have any questions about how 1 Million Cups works, getting started, or anything else, please come see one of us. We'll be happy to help. And I want to thank you all for being here. If you didn't get a chance to sign in and let 1 Million Cups corporate know you were here, please scan that and do so. And then remember the words from Mr. Michael Jordan about failure, that failure leads to success. Remember that. Failure doesn't mean you quit. Failure just means you learned one more way. One of my favorite quotes is Thomas Edison when he was asked, well, you failed over 1,000 times making the light bulb. He goes, I didn't fail. I just learned 1,000 ways that it didn't work. It's all a matter of perspective and attitude. So with that, have a great holiday. Merry Christmas to everybody, and we'll see you back on the 31st.